what is one of your big decisions that you've made in life, some tough decision that you've made in life, and how did you go through that process? How did you come to making a choice? So I'll take the first step on this one and say mine is, my wife getting married. So I was pretty nervous about that, and I had lots of information, but still difficult to make, a call on, going back and forth, being a little scared of commitment, and knowing that this is for good and better and worse and all that kind of stuff. And so ultimately kind of came down to, after considering all the information, just a gut of like, yes, this is the person who I want to spend my life with. So that's mine. So you can copy me on that decision for marriage if you want, or if there's other big decisions you've made before that you want to talk about, I'd love to hear about
it. Okay, well, then I'll go next. I won't copy that one because that's a very good one. My joke used to be that it was easier to get married than it was to decide on whether I wanted a side-by-side or an up or down fridge. So but I think for us it was moving our family up here when our kids, especially my daughter, were still in high school, and moving from California to Washington State and literally changing our lives. So that took a lot of thought and a lot of data crunching, and then you still had to go with your gut reaction on it. So that was probably my toughest one.
Well, we're sitting right in the center of one of the biggest decisions I was involved in, and that was the approval of the Silverdale Mall. This occurred back in the late 70s, early 80s, and it was shortly after the Trident submarine base had been announced for Kitsap County, and of course that brought a lot of attention to Silverdale, and of course it began with a proposal to build the Silverdale Mall, and the hearings that we held out here, that we heard from both sides of the issue, people that wanted it, people that didn't want it, and it really came down to the issue of if you're going to have one, where's the best location for it, and where are the highways that would serve it, and things like that. And of course it changed Silverdale forever because of the commercial development that took place after the mall was built. So it was a big decision and a very difficult one.
I'll go. I'll start with a comment. Asking my wife was one of the easiest decisions. To marry me was one of the easiest decisions I've ever made. I think the hardest one that I made was when we decided to leave the Northeast and relocate to the Northwest with no jobs, nothing. And I don't know, in hindsight, it was a great decision, but at the time, it was a bit scary.
I guess I'll go. And I agree. Getting married was a piece of cake. I've been married a long, long time.
Thank you both for throwing me.
I hope your wife's not in attendance.
As far as big decisions, God, I don't know.
Cut the tape there, go forward, start the meeting a little
Yeah.
bit.
My life's pretty easy, so I don't know. My biggest decisions are probably, I know when I'm going to come up off the beach that I'm at every day in the summer. Spend a lot of time there. So it's tough to say what my hardest decision was. I haven't had a lot of hard ones in my life.
Lucky guy. I guess that leaves me.
And leaves you, Rick.
Always the same.
There must be something wrong with me because I can't think of a really hard decision. Unless maybe it was in my law practice whether I took a client or not, because my managing partner of the firm said that I had a problem saying no to people, and that's a fact. So that I can't think of a hard decision.
All right. Mike, would you like to comment?
I've been married 3 times, so that's. My biggest decision was I quit basically from a company in Ohio, and with no job, nothing going on, I wound up interviewing with a company who was hiring, which was great, but it was in Italy, which was scary but exciting. And so that was one of the biggest decisions I made, to actually take that job and move my family and 2 kids and 2 dogs to Italy. And it was a wonderful experience, so it was worth it in the end, but scared the crap out of me.
Thank you all for sharing. Our process tonight, when we get down to new business, or get down to number 6, evaluation of projects, which has been what has drawn the crowds to our meetings, which were previously empty usually. The process that we're going to use is we're going to take each potential partner and discuss that project, the pros and the cons of it, and just be able to, as a board, be able to share our thoughts and what we're thinking on that. So there won't be a ranking of those projects tonight. There won't be a deciding of those projects or how many of those projects we're going to fund tonight. But we want to be able to discuss each of them and just talk that through as a board. When we're done with that, then we will have the conversation about ranking each of the projects, and each of us bring that to the table and see if there's alignment, or see if it's messy, or see what we have. And then after that, also the philosophy of how will we fund it. Do we want to fund 1? Do we want to fund all 7? Do we want to fund 2 or 3? Why? So we'll go through that as kind of a structure for our process. For public comment, we always want to invite that here as after we approve the minutes. But if it is on different projects that we've already heard from, also want to weigh the more public comment we hear, the less amount of actual interaction the board has with each other of discussing what we need to discuss. So the crowd looks a little light tonight, so it wasn't as big as I thought it was going to be. But please make your public comment. But that's what we weigh as we invite you up. Okay, approval of minutes. I was not here for that meeting, so can I have a first?
I would move we approve the minutes that's circulated.
And a second?
I will second it.
Although, any discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right.
I'll abstain because I wasn't here either.
Yeah, and Mike, if you put abstain down for me too, since I was not here. All right. Where is our list of people? Thank you. All right. First up is Tracy Schmidt, representing Ridge Motorsports Park. If you could come up to the mic. We do have a sound system, and then it'll be on the video as well.
Hi, I'm not sure what the appropriate time was to really come and introduce myself. Is it on? You know, being the first one is like the test subject, so.
Thank you for being brave.
Hey, you're welcome. My name's Tracy Schmidt. I'm the general manager of the Ridge Motorsports Park, and we weren't really sure what was the best time to really come and try to introduce ourselves and what our facility what our facility is capable of handling and stuff. And I know that there's a proposal of the Circuit of the Northwest, which is a great proposal as well. But obviously we wanted the opportunity just to share who we are. So we're about a 200-acre motorsports facility. We have a 2.47-mile road course. We have an AMA-sanctioned motorsports facility. We have a kart track that is an exact replica of the road course. We do drifting on the skid pad and autocross, and we also have over 400 events where we have BMW of North America, Porsche, Wimra, and a lot of successful organizations that come visit the facility. We are pursuing national events in which we are on track to hold our first national event in 2020. That'll be televised. But we just didn't know how much discussion there was of this facility being only about 30 miles away from the next proposed facility. We are privately funded. The owners have invested their heart and soul in creating a great facility for not just the industry, but the surrounding community and even this community where we can all feed off great events and everything. Sorry, I'm super nervous right now.
Where is it located?
We are located in Shelton. And that was just a concern because even like from a conflict of interest standpoint, we're all going to be sharing a lot of the same organizations. And if you're on the back end, how that usually works is organizations only pick 5-10 events and they don't add events on, they stick with their schedule. So what happens is if you're all of a sudden diversifying that schedule, you're doing 2 events over here, then 2 events over here, and then 2 events over here. So it's not as, motorsports isn't as strong as some people portray it to be. A lot of the tracks have had to diversify their business models and incorporate other business ideas and entities into the facility in order to make it survive, in order to make it grow and keep expanding. So we do have just some concerns because there's been privately funded funds invested into the facility, and then you have this other great opportunity that could be to where you're pursuing public funds, and we just felt like it was vital for us to at least say who we are, that we are a player in the industry, and that sometimes it's easy to have reports come across our desk and show that something is alive and thriving. But if you're not on the back end, I'm on the back end every day. I talk to the organizations, I talk to the clubs, I know the struggles. I'm out working the track myself and everything. And unless you're on the back end and you're sitting in track operations meetings and physically and visually and just hearing all of it, there's a lot of struggles that are in play with that. And so it's easy to get a report to say, we got this great plan, it's going to be financially stable, we're going to pursue stuff this way. And then it's another thing to say, okay, I'm looking at your plan and I see these great ideas, but it's not all the way factual of what's trying to be pursued. And so I just wanted to come from an educational standpoint to just discuss some idea, or just discuss who we are, and just say that, please keep in mind that, we're also a successful entity that's not that far away, and we want everyone to succeed in this industry. So, thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. All right, next up, Jonathan Phelps, Evergreen, Port Campbell.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. I've spoken to our project prior a couple months ago, so I'll keep it brief as we do have our chapter president here tonight. So I'm here on behalf of Evergreen Mountain Bike Alliance, as you can obviously see, and also supported the Port Campbell project. And as an example of the impact of this project that can have on the community, recently this past weekend, King County held in conjunction with Evergreen Mountain Bike Alliance their annual celebration of the mountain bike trails at Duthie Park, which is a bike-specific trail system. They roughly had attendance of 30,000 people show up during the weekend.
Where is that?
It's over towards Sammamish, so kind of off of I-90 as you're heading out that way. I know multiple people that ride here. We go out on a regular basis to partake in that trail system as well. And so we're very, very excited to hopefully have that trail system in our backyard in Port Campbell. As an example of additional uses, I help run and manage 2 of the races that are held out in the Port Campbell trail system. Those 2 races alone bring in 500 riders, and that is not that does not include the support people, family, teams, etc. So well over 1,000 people just between the 2 races. So obviously the economic impact of such a project of the entire Port Campbell trail system is very vital to our community in regards to livability, viability, and the opportunity to get more and more families outdoors and get them off the couch and off the games, etc. and whatnot. So I know our organization teams very, very closely with North Kitsap Trail Association. We are on track with about 3,000 man-hours of volunteer out in Port Campbell. Our organization goes out monthly. Every third Saturday we're out there either trail building or trail maintenance. So we're the driving force behind keeping those trails open for all the users out there, whether it be runners, hikers, horse, bike, whoever. So we're very, very excited to continue that project and keep these trails built out there as well. So like I said, I'll keep this brief. Thank you for your opportunity.
Thank you so much. All right. Next up, Linda Barry Murray, NK Trails Association.
Hi, I'm
Welcome.
looking around.
Welcome back.
Because, thanks, I'll keep this brief also, but it looks like the president of our nonprofit stewards group probably got held up in traffic. So I've been involved in this, in the Fort Gamble project since 2007, if you can believe it. All of us involved in this are nothing but volunteers. We washed our shirts, but we had hoped more people would show up. But the whole project has been in the works now for 12 years. All volunteers, all community effort. We had North Kitsap Trails Association had clocked over 10,000 volunteer hours about 6 years ago, which was the last time we counted up. We have been advocating for the Sound to Olympics Trail for this project that you've seen here. Portions of that have been built. Those plans have been adopted into Kitsap County's plans, to Puget Sound Regional Council, the 4-county regional plan. North Kitsap Trails initially got a grant from the National Park Service for this trail plan, which we started in 2008. It was adopted by the county in 2011, written completely by volunteers. We had over 500 people come to meetings. We did workshops and invited people to weigh in on surveys and had almost 900 people participate. The county has worked on, I believe, must be 10 to 12 grants over the last 12 years. The final fundraising push had 1,200 individual people write checks from their money for this park acquisition. So I just wanted to let you know that this project is a project that has really had the heart and soul of our community for a really long time. A huge amount of effort. We really believe in the economic development potential. It is bigger than 93% of our state parks. It is a project of a scale that we really need the PFD's partnership in. And I hope that you will support this project. I want to just pass around some simple brochures that we've been using. Everything, again, was paid for with donations. These trail maps, we've passed out over 100,000 trail maps up there in Fort Gamble. And this is the North Kitsap Trails brochure that talks about the Sound to Olympics Trail, and it's a very shorthand version of our vision and that the community vision has here. Our groups, we have brought together such a unique coalition. We have the mountain bikers, we have birders, we have the Audubon, we have Great Peninsula Conservancy, we have the trails organizations, and we have everyday people coming out every month and have for 10, 12 years now working on this project. So thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Linda. All right, next up is Matt Slaney from Evergreen West Sound. Did I say your last name right?
Yeah, you did.
All
Matt
right.
Slaney. I'm the president of the local chapter, Evergreen Mountain Bike Alliance. Evergreen is a statewide nonprofit, actually the biggest such organization in the country. Really got good organization on the headquarters level and really helping with all this sort of stuff. And our headquarters has really helped us work with the Parks Department and Jim Dunwitty to get that. I think you saw in earlier presentations that we actually have a memorandum of agreement with the county to build this ride park. You heard John and Linda talking about how many people are coming to this park, how much it's going to be used. I mean, just so this project really just adds to and finishes what we've already started. We really need parking. And this thing, one of the things in this thing is the parking. We talked about that in the last meeting, and it's something we really need. So this really takes care of that. The Sound to Olympic Trail portion is, yes, it's a recreation thing, it's a family thing, it's also a transportation thing. So it really knocks that, checks that box really well. So I'd kind of like to point out too that Linda mentioned, like, what she say, $11 million raised in raising the funds to get where we did. If you think about it, we've already spent $11 million on this project. She talked about 1,200 people donating to make it all happen. Well, that's 1,200 people who are voting for this. So I just kind of wanted to just lay it out there that it's got a lot of support, and it really, you heard how it meets the needs of the county and recreation. And like this weekend, John and I, we're going up to Tiger Mountain and Issaquah area to ride mountain bikes. We're going to be going up there. We're going to be spending money. We're off doing it, and that we really intend to bring that here. And if there was any doubt about Evergreen's commitment, I saw in Cole's presentation that there was like, hey, maybe there's a $40,000 match from Evergreen. Yes, commit. We can do that. We've already put in a ton of time. We've already been paying for design of the trails. We're totally committed to doing our part on this. So appreciate your support.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, Mark and Lynn Shoren.
Sorry, I signed them up because I knew that they were coming, but I don't know.
So I just want to
We'll go with Lynn. Welcome.
So I just wanted to add, I've been involved in the process for a long time, part of Evergreen Mountain Bike Alliance, also the feasibility study. I just want to point out for the Sound to Olympics Trail, Kitsap County already spent $250,000 towards that feasibility study, and we worked on the route to go across the Port Gamble block. So that again will be the transportation route, and the goal is to move that from the Hood Canal Bridge to the Kingston Ferry, as well as the Hood Canal Bridge eventually to Bainbridge Island Ferry. So transportation. So I don't have anything more to add to my comrades. So thank you very much for your consideration.
Excellent. Is there anybody else who didn't get signed up who would like to speak? Brian? Welcome back.
Hi, good evening. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'd like to talk a few minutes about a couple of letters that we received during the past few weeks, and I also have to say that Circuit of the Northwest has been in planning for the last 5 years, and we've spent a lot of time and money on due diligence, and we have a market study that shows over 900 jobs. We show it'll raise over $50 million in the first couple of years, and we are not coming to market as a club track. So I appreciate the comments from Tracy from the Ridge, but we're not going to be we're not going to be head to head with a club track. We're doing something totally different, and tonight I'm going to talk a little bit about some public support we have through the Navy. Joel, could you hand out the letters from the Navy EVOC people? We train the Navy quarterly. They have over 600 personnel that we train, and this is a letter of support that we just recently got from them. The next letter is from Universal Technical Institute, and we have a letter of interest from them predicated on public involvement. They're looking at having a school here. They're very big on the East Coast and very big in Arizona, but they want a West Coast presence, and they're really excited about the public involvement. And our STEM, we got asked to be involved with the West Sound STEM Network, so that will help close our skills gap that we have in Kitsap County and in our region. I just talked to the personnel director for the county, and they're unable to hire engineers. They can't find engineers. There's not, supply of engineers is low, skilled labor is low, and this will definitely help close that skills gap. The most exciting letter that we have expressed interest from a $50 billion OEM that wants to come here. And Joel, can you hand out that letter as well?
Yes, and Brian, being a lawyer, you'll know it's confidential.
And so the manufacturer we've been in discussions with is a Honda Motor Company, and so we're excited to have them. They've visited the site. They've had their executive team visit the site. They want to be a part of CNW for a number of reasons. Number one, for experiential marketing. They have all their products can be showcased at the site. And they're really, it does come with a catch. They want the public involvement. They're really big in STEM, they're big in robotics, they're big in education. These are things they brought up to us where they're excited about. And yeah, we're pretty excited about that. And I think
Thank
the
you, Brian.
taxpayers should be really excited about that as well. Thank you. Any questions?
All right.
Oh, Joel's gonna leave the master plan as well, the updated one from his team. Thank you.
All right. Moving on to agenda number 4, board meetings, discussing how do we video them. We want to be transparent with the public, especially as we're making this decision. And so looking at BCAT as a possibility. Mike, can you speak to that as far as what the choice is and what the information is?
Yeah, I can. I did check with BCAT. I got a quote, which you have in your hand. There are 2 possibilities. One is recording here, which the way Nolan has been doing here. The cost of that is higher than what Nolan is doing because they have much more editing that they would do and the charge for that. And then the way that we do business here, I've also included information about the cost of the rental of the facility, which obviously is higher here. There are some of the BCAT wired facilities that are free. The one that I've compared is the one that BCAT provided in their quote, which was for the Norm Dix Center, their public venue, which is called the Egg. And the cost of that is less, obviously, than it is here. The cost for BCAT for a 3-hour meeting is $100 an hour. The cost of the room is $38.50 an hour. There would be a little more expense in travel for me to go down there. That is cheaper than we're doing here. But we would potentially conflict with some meetings in the Norm Dix Center. And if the city of Bremerton decides to have a meeting on a given night where we're scheduled, they can technically preempt us from that. That doesn't happen frequently, but it can. We'd probably have to reschedule our meetings. We may not be able to get the regular meeting nights that we have typically done or have currently scheduled.
Mike, when we had spoken, you had shared that there were other places as well. Paulsbo was free, I believe. Bainbridge Island was another place, and we had discussed maybe even rotating around to have better access to people throughout the
and one of the
county.
other places is at Port of Bremerton in their room. That's a smaller room, and potentially we'd have attendance problems depending upon the topic and what was going on. Bainbridge Island, I think, is a little far away for us, but except for Tom, it'd be great for him. We could move the meetings around. The Paulsbo City Hall, again, is a certain size. They can take, I believe the number is 60 in the audience, which would probably be fine for most of the meetings that we'd have, but occasionally we could overload that. There is a charge for that. Depends on whether they would classify us as a public entity or as a private one. I think we'd fall under the government entity, but I haven't talked with them yet to determine that. I only did the comparison on Norm Dix because that was the one that was provided to me as the quote from BCAT.
All right. Discussion amongst the board.
I got a question.
What's your questions or what's your?
How come there's not an editing fee for BCAT when it's done at Norm Dix and there's one? Wouldn't they have to edit both of them no matter what?
No, they do a lot of that editing on site. In other words, they have multiple cameras. So if someone's speaking, they have the camera on the speaker. If they have slides going up on the screen, they switch to a different camera and they show the slides. So in effect, they're editing on the fly.
Okay, they can only do that at the Norm Dix Center. That's the only place they don't charge us an editing fee, I guess.
No, there is a fee there, and I'd noted that at Norm Dix.
For the editing?
No, not for the editing. No, that there is not an editing fee at Norm Dix because whoever's running the cameras and the speakers, on the microphones, will do that on the fly.
Would that be the same at the other places also?
Yes.
So even if they went further away, say we did want to go to Bainbridge, it's going to be the same price?
I don't know that for certain. I'm assuming that would be because I've seen videos from the other locations and they're all done the same way. In other words, they switch cameras and switch back and forth. So it's edited on the fly.
But why don't they edit it on the fly here then?
Because they don't have the kind of camera and audio setup that they have in those locations. BCAT has already preset the cameras. They're located in the ceilings, so they're all fixed, and all they have to do is turn the equipment on and then turn on whichever camera they want, whichever microphone they want, and that's why they can edit on the fly. Here, we do have an audio system, but it's relatively rudimentary compared to what is already installed equipment in those locations.
So the added value of BCAT is that they would televise our meetings on their channel a couple of times a week after our meeting,
Yes.
I think.
There would be rebroadcast of the recording.
Yeah. So that, I don't know how you put a value on that because citizens that want to keep track of what we're doing in that can watch at home on the BCAT channel our meetings. So that's an added value that I don't know that you can put a price on it, but
Well, effectively, we're doing that now because the recordings that Nolan is doing are within a matter of 3 or 4 days are posted to our YouTube channel and is available either on the website by clicking on a link or going to the YouTube channel for the KPFD and seeing them there the same way they would but it's not through their television.
I understand, but that's there's a lot of people out there who don't have computer setups to do that.
Okay.
You know?
Is BCAT only available on cable? Because there's a lot of us without cable too.
I think it is only available on cable. Yeah.
So there's pros and cons both ways on
Exactly.
that. Yeah. What about the county building? I mean, we're a county entity. Have we ever looked at having meetings there?
They have the same setup there. I did not check with the county about what the rental was. I focused on comparisons with what the BCAT quote that they gave me. I'd asked about the other locations, but John that I talked to didn't provide quotes that more than that one location. But I can get the additional information and find out. As far as I know, the not the courthouse, the county administration building, that room is available without cost, but I don't know that for certain. Right now, our meetings coincide with the county commissioners' meetings, so we would have to change our schedule in order to utilize that room.
And do they overlap with something currently at Norm Dix? Do you know?
Not the regular meetings of the city council, no.
Certainly, there's an advantage to being in the same place each time, having people know that this is the place that we meet at. So there's some good to the routine. There's also, I think, some good with trying something different and moving around and trying some different places and having our meetings on cable just to make people aware. Before the governor signed this bill, I would guess there were very few people in Kitsap County who were aware that there was such a thing as PFD. So I'd be inclined to think about moving it around and having BCAT do it at those different places, kind of a combination. Other comments, though, of board, what you want to talk out or what you're thinking?
Well, I'd agree with you that all the years I've been on this board, there's only a handful of people that I know, until I told them about it or met, knew about our existence or what we do or what we've done. I think that would be a big benefit.
It's certainly convenient for me to have it here because my office is 2 minutes away, and it makes it very convenient for me.
Where is the Norm Dix?
That's in downtown Bremerton.
Next to the ferry.
Yeah, and so for me to get down there before 5:30, I'll be going through commute traffic in order to get down to
Well, that would be
Bremerton.
true for a number of us. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it works both ways.
Yeah.
Well, and there's a parking problem down there too. Not like you park here.
So if we were to move it around, do we have to go to certain places? We don't have to pay the $300. Do they have certain places that they want us to do it, or can we just?
We can have somebody like what we have now to do the recording wherever we are, but if we use those locations, we have the advantage of BCAT already having all those installations made, and all they have to do is turn the equipment on and point the cameras wherever they want, and it's get recorded and it's done.
So how many of those do they have? It's like Paulsbo City Hall, maybe?
Yeah, Paulsbo City Hall, Bainbridge City Hall, the county building, Norm Dix Center in Bremerton, the Port of Bremerton, meeting room. Is that all of them, Bill?
Port Orchard City Hall.
Port Orchard City Hall. So there's 6 of them basically. The city's halls and the 2 county buildings.
And that could only be on the BCAT channel, right? So that we can't utilize YouTube then?
Well,
does BCAT have its own YouTube channel?
I don't know that, but since our meetings, we would get a copy of that, and that could get posted on
YouTube
our
as well.
website and our YouTube channel, as well as where it is in BCAT. If we make an agreement with them, we'd insist that
I
that
believe
be
the
case.
port does that too.
And put it on their own, yeah. Because I'm serious about the number of people cutting cable. That there's a lot of people that would not be able to see this.
Do you need any more information, board? You want to take a vote on this? Someone want to?
What would we be voting on? Moving it around?
Make a motion to use BCAT and move it around to different places.
I'm torn. I'm passionate both ways. What do you guys think?
I like BCAT. I'm torn on the moving part. There's value to staying in the same place where everyone knows we're at, and this is central to the county. It is, but there's also value to moving because we'd probably get some people on Bainbridge that would come up to a meeting that wouldn't come all the way down here or Port Orchard. So I'm really up in the air. But I think BCAT is probably the way to go for this.
Well, and I'd say that you don't have to move around every meeting. We could continue to be here, which I would be comfortable with, but occasionally move it around, especially if you have an issue that might be more of interest, one part of the county versus another. I don't know that there might be such a time.
BCAT does have a YouTube channel.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Is that so you're concerned?
Well, it takes care of that one, absolutely. Yeah, that way I could watch us. I don't want it to be confusing, to be randomly at different places, because then people will not know where we're at,
Yeah.
which is an issue.
Do we need a motion for this?
We would need a motion, and I agree that having consistency can be helpful, but if you're going to come to a PFD meeting, you're probably not just going to wander in here on a Monday night and hope that the meeting is here. You're going to go to the website and know that that's when the next one is, and if there's a location next to it of where it's at, I think that wouldn't be so hard for people to find the next place. We can also try them and see if there's one that doesn't kind of suit our needs better too, you know, like after we've tried them out. All right, let's take action. What is our motion?
Okay, I'll make a motion that we use BCAT for our recording, and that for now we stay here, subject to change whenever the board wants to change it to a new place.
Well, can BCAT come here?
BCAT can come here, but that's our most expensive.
I know.
It's twice as much.
Yeah.
It is, but we have continuity here. We know that we can get it every other Monday, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we never not get this place. I'm worried that at some of the city buildings, that's not always the case.
Sure.
I know the city I work for, their conference room is booked out for all kinds of stuff all the time, between different committees and boards and everything else. And so I would worry that we wouldn't have this consistency of the Monday meetings.
Well, if you were going to move it around on occasion, once a quarter or something like that, so that you do get to different locations and we can utilize the BCAT locations, and that's fine. And we can, I think we can contract with BCAT to do that when we choose to utilize those locations. But Owen's been doing a good job, and it's half of what it would be with having BCAT trying to record us here.
Yeah, if we go with
I think
BCAT,
Darren was trying to get
if we go with BCAT, I would like to personally go to the different locations where they're already set up, so we cut out that $300 additional of them coming here.
I mean, I'm flexible either way. There is value to coming here.
Yeah.
I don't mind traveling around either if we can get the sites.
Yeah.
And what's the charge at Norm Dix for us to take a?
It's, I think it was $38.50.
Oh, an hour.
An
Okay,
hour.
so basically $100. Okay.
So, did you make a motion? Sorry.
Your motion again.
Okay. That we are going to use BCAT for the recording services, and that will move the meetings to different locations throughout the year, I guess, however we choose to do it.
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion for that? Okay, all those in favor, aye.
Just for clarification, so you're saying use BCAT all the time?
Yes.
Whether it's here or someplace else?
Right.
So then I'll go back to discussion. So while we're here at Silverdale, we're increasing our costs. But when we go out to any of the other BCAT locations, our prices actually drop back down. So we'll probably basically break even on that. Okay.
Well, but then we're going to pay more expenses, I think, for Mike and his traveling.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's 58 cents a month.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so. You know, it's
We can
there's
afford
travel
it.
for all of us, no matter where we're going. So some of us luck out and some of us don't. That's all.
I'm just the only one you pay.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Motion carries. Mike, give you direction to find out availability for those other BCAP locations, and let's start scheduling future meetings at them if they
Okay.
have availability.
I had basically contracted with Nolan to do the meetings tonight, obviously, in 2 weeks. So that will give me a chance to get something covered for
Yeah.
July and beyond
Yeah, very good.
if I can, so, all right.
Going on to number 5, ongoing business, financing, bonding briefing. Mike and Brian, you're gonna both speak to this.
One quick question, who was the second?
Rick.
I was.
It was Rick, okay. All right. So, let me just start off, because in your packets is a briefing notes, if you will. It says Media Center at the top. And it spells out the process of a bond issue. And you've heard Brian and I talk about some of those parties in that process. The issuer, that's us. The solicitor, that's Brian. Second page, bond counsel, Brian is checking into that. Financial advisor, I've been checking into that. The underwriter were the 2 companies that you heard from last meeting. So those are the people that are involved in helping to set up the bond issue. There's others that come in after the bonds have sold, but the next couple of pages deal with the steps that you have to go through in order to sell bonds. Which is why we need all of these people involved in the process. Each one kind of does different steps. So, Brian.
There are members of the board. So since the last meeting, I have continued to vet out a potential bond counsel. I've narrowed that search to 3 firms that meet the criteria of being available, being interested, and in all cases, all 3 of them are very interested in working with the PFD, have relevant experience with special purpose districts, and so I have 1 proposal in from 1 firm. The other 2 will have proposals in to me, I believe, by the end of the week. So I will bring those to the next meeting, and just maybe by general background, generally their fee structures are based on a percentage of the bond amount. I think it's like, anyway, it's based on a percentage of the bond amount, and it's paid at the bond closing. So under that mechanism, with all 3 firms, there's no ongoing cost during the advising process.
No retainer?
No retainers have come up in discussions. So anyway, at the next meeting, I should have all 3 proposals to bring forward to you. If you have any questions now, I'm happy to answer them.
As I was discussing this with Mike, and just to give everybody understanding, maybe you already know, but as at least it was being conveyed to me, there are 4 different firms that we're going to hire to go through this bonding process, if especially we go outside of the county. There's the bond underwriter, the one who's going to sell the bonds. There's the legal oversight that has to be a different company that we'll also have to choose and vet and make a choice on. Then there's someone who's going to be our financial advisor, who has a fiduciary responsibility to us. And then there's also the paying agent or trustee who's actually the one who distributes the dividends to the bondholders. Am I correct in understanding that it's 4 different entities that we'll eventually hire?
The short answer is yes, but it's probably just discretionary. Whether you want, for example, the financial advisor, it's recommended that you do it, but it's not necessary. It is necessary to have a bond issuer. It is necessary to have bond counsel. The financial advisor is like the quarterback, and for someone like us who hasn't been down the path of public finance before, and knowing that the other people involved are in their silos for certain reasons, then it's good to have that person with the overall big picture.
Well, the financial advisor is the only one that would have a fiduciary responsibility of looking out for us in the transactions. The other guys are all trying to make money in it. No, I mean, they're still working for us because it's our bond issue. But they're doing that because they're going to make money out of the transaction.
Right. Well, the bond counsel has a fiduciary obligation to us as well.
Yes.
So how are the other entities? How's their payment set up? I read the one on here, the percentage. What's going to be layered on top of that with the other people involved? Ballpark.
The only one I've looked at is bond counsel. So again, they will. I have one proposal. We just take a look at their sheet. But they would say. This is just one representative example. On a principal amount of bonds between $5 and $25 million, they would want a fee of $21,500 plus 80 cents per $1,000 over $5 million.
Will you run that by me again? So 5 to...
So there would be a basic fee of $21,500 and then an increase of 80 cents per $1,000 over $5 million.
And that's up to 20 million?
Up to 25.
So that's bond counsel.
Yes.
And how do...
The other, you have an example in your packets of the proposal that I received from one of the 2 financial advisors that I'd talked to.
Right.
Northwest Municipal Advisors. They have done the most work with PFDs. Almost every PFD, they have worked with them on their bonds. And their fee is based on the issuance. They also have an hourly rate for some activities, but for the bond financing services, it's $1.25 1,000 with a minimum fee of $17,250.
So for 20 million, that puts them at 25,000. If
Yeah.
just using that number as a base.
Yep.
And those are the financial advisors.
Correct.
How does is it the paying agent or the trustee?
Yeah, paying agent.
How are they reimbursed and or compensated? I'm just trying to figure out what the overall costs are.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
no, and we'll find all of that out again when we know how much we're gonna sell bonds for, and all that will be calculated to get an idea of that. I mean, you can get a rough estimate, but the paying agent is basically where today we are paying our debt service to the county because they sold bonds for it. We would pay debt service to the paying agent, and then they would distribute that.
So the county doesn't charge us?
No,
Okay, so we'll have an outside party.
yes.
But we don't know how
And
much.
in the last time that we went through the county, do they do all 4 of these responsibilities then for us? Or is it just a couple of them and we still hire someone to do different pieces of it?
If we wish to, we could still hire a financial advisor or municipal advisor in order to act on our behalf and warn us and keep track of what's going on. We didn't do that on the first offering that I'm aware of. Rick, you were the only one that was there when that happened. Do you know if they had a financial advisor that was advising us in that bond process, or did we leave that entirely to?
No, I think we did, but I'm not clear.
Okay. But typically, yeah, if they sold the bonds, all of these people would be working for them because they're selling the bonds. We would be a backdoor recipient, and we would utilize the same debt service repayment structure that we use now. We'd have to go by the regular process, which is having a bank do that for us, and we pay the debt service to them.
Do we have any kind of estimate of how much money we would save by going with the county so that we could give more money to the projects rather than by hiring different entities?
I don't, because Brian and I have been going through this and sorting that out, but I think that he and I can get together and figure at least a number. How close that would be to what reality would be, I don't know.
There's a couple variables to that too. I mean, there's the variable of the out-of-pocket expense, but there's also the variable that you know, based on what Caitlin Caldwell told us and Dave Tregerson told us, if we were under the county umbrella, we would have more money to spend for projects. If we go on our own, we'll have a higher interest rate and higher costs.
That's the big
number.
The big one.
Yeah, yeah.
Where we
But I
save
thought
money.
that wasn't an option anymore.
Well,
So how much more is it gonna cost not waiting till September of 2020, like what they said, to do this? Do we know that?
No.
How, can we get an estimate of how much that would be? I really have no idea. So it said doing the bonds early would cost us money, right?
Yeah, the last information that Caitlin gave us in the last meeting, if you remember that bar graph that she had, the red or pink area that was our existing debt service that would be restructured, but all the way out here in 2026 was a little pink dot. And that could be as little as $50,000 of our current bond amount that we're paying off, stuck out there. As long as it's in 2041, we can still get the debt, the tax rebate that we depend on for our income. But that debt would be restructured to try to maximize the amount of money that we would have available to start paying on new bonds. And part of that depends on whether or not all the bonds are sold at once. If we choose projects that are all in the planning stage, construction is going to start until earliest 2021 and could be 2022. So we're not going to need the money from bonds until that time. If we choose a different set of projects, we could try and sell some bonds, not for all of the amount, in the next year, and then do a second bond offering in 2 years, depending upon which projects we pick and how much we allot to each project.
Right, except if I remember right, and some of you guys that were here can correct me if I'm wrong, they had both said that we would lose money by not waiting till September of 2020 because of doing it earlier. Does that sound right?
Was that because of paying off the existing
Yeah, no,
bonds?
some statutory
Right,
thing.
so like an early payment.
Yeah.
Yes, the early payment. So I was just wondering
Yeah.
how much that is going to be instead of waiting.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
I don't know how we could. I'd like. To,
Yeah, we can ask Caitlin or David and find out what that is. I wouldn't recommend that we pay off the existing bonds early because it is quite a penalty to do that. The earliest that we could totally pay those off, that's not recommended, but we can restructure those, some portion of it now. But the earliest we would be able to pay off or restructure those bonds was going to be 2021.
is there a cost to restructuring the bonds?
Yeah, it's offering new bonds and paying off old bonds, and you're typically going to do that when you're trying to lower the interest rates. You want to refund these bonds with a new offering that's at a lower percentage than what we were, and that's what happened in 2011.
But we wouldn't be doing that this time. It would be at a higher interest rate, right? Because interest rates are higher than when we refinanced before.
They're somewhat comparable because there's actually been some stabilization or some retraction because of the president and others saying that we're going to change some of the financial structure. So I don't know, but we'll ask Caitlin and try to get some numbers on that. But we don't know right now.
Any other questions? Okay, so as I understand it, for this issue, for our next meeting on the 24th, we'll have at least 2, maybe 3 bond underwriters who will present to us so that we can make a decision on which one of them that we would go with if we don't go with the county. We'll also have at least 2 financial advisors here that will present to us.
2 have agreed.
And we'll make a choice on that.
Yeah.
Mike, will you please follow up on Pat's question of early payment and what that will cost us so that we have a firm number on that? And then also the savings that we would get by going with the county, whatever that percentage is for, and then extrapolate it out for whatever the amount of bonds that we do. As well as the cost savings by not hiring the other entities.
I seem to recall that we were uncertain whether or not we could work through the county. Is that still the case? And has any
that's the
progress
next,
been made to explore?
Yep, that's the next item. So, Mike, if you would speak to that.
Okay.
Yeah, you have a copy of the response from Ed Wolf, who was the chair or the president of the Board of Commissioners. And they have said they have chosen not to sell bonds for us. When I mentioned that to the fellow at Northwest Municipal Advisors, he was a little dismayed because it was going to be much more expensive for us, but he said, you know, I think there's a way that we can explain it to them or present a case that they may want to may be willing to change their mind. So I haven't heard that yet. I don't know what that could be, but that's why I feel that we should hire a financial advisor. And maybe it should have been hired before I asked Ed Wolf whether or not he'd meet with us about. But I would have to think that at some point they'd listen to reason and talk to us. But I don't know what that case would be to present to hopefully change their opinion.
Yeah, the county's our partner. The county created us. We want to go with them as our first option, just on principle. But then if we're going to save this much money too, and we can make the case that there are more projects that are going to get more money, it sure seems like that is in all of our
Yeah.
best interest.
Well,
The
it seems like
example-
it's in the best interest of the county commissioners too.
I would think, but that's not the answer we got. The example that they used was kind of, in my mind, comparing apples and oranges about the default of the housing authority left them holding the bag for a bunch of their bonds. So they've been burned once, and I don't blame them for being conservative about that. But I think that we can work with them, especially if we have a financial advisor working with us in order to do the best job we can in working with the county to get the best result.
All right.
Well, as I said before, I think that a couple of board members ought to meet with Commissioner Wolf and have a discussion with him. I mean, was this a decision of the Board of County Commissioners or of the committee that they've created to oversee the issuance of bonds? And I don't know if which one that is. I suspect it's not been discussed by the three commissioners, and frankly, it's a political decision. I mean, we all know they created us in the beginning. That they're our partners in a couple of projects. One big one at the fairgrounds. Why would they not be interested in working with us to be able to create more funds to fund projects in the county? I don't understand that. So,
Do you think we should wait until we pick a financial advisor to go have that conversation? If there is information as to other advantages that it would create that maybe we don't know yet?
I'd recommend it because I think that we're going to have more tools to present to them in maybe a more sound argument behind just what you said, Bill, but there may be some other financial arguments that will have equal amount of influence.
when are we going to have that? I mean, is it going to be 2 months from now, 3 months from now, or
You can pick a financial advisor in 2 weeks at the next meeting.
We picked that person on the 24th. That we have two of them coming to the meeting, and so we'll make a choice.
Okay. Well, let's wait.
I spoke to the second financial advisor, and he was very nice, very knowledgeable. I wouldn't have a worry about that, but they have done little, if any, PFD financing and bonding. The Northwest financial or municipal advisors have literally done bonding for almost every one of the PFDs.
All right.
That would be my recommendation, but it'll be up to you when you hear the two of them.
Let's move on to number 6, evaluation of projects. I'd like to go through the projects in the same order that they presented to us. There is you received that email, but it's also printed out for you in your packet. And so I'd like to start with Port Gamble Forest Heritage Park.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I guess a point of process. In the last couple of weeks, I've met with or had discussions with two of the projects. One of them is involved in the Port Archer project, Kitsap Bank, and I met with them and their consultant. They're in the process of selecting a location for their corporate headquarters, and their consultant has told them that to deal with the onerous permitting process, they need, if they want to get into their new corporate headquarters, wherever that may be, they need to make a selection within the next 30 days of where they're going to locate. Now, I know that doesn't affect us, but it is important to that project because they're a major portion of it. So when I told them that I didn't think we'd be making a decision until later on this summer, if then, they were pretty dismayed. The second one is the project at the Port of Bremerton. They're getting ready to develop their offering for private investment, and in their offering, they have to point out what kind of other fundings and other involvement in the project, and they're ready to do that. And and I told them frankly that it looked like we would not be ready to make any decisions till late this summer or early fall. I bring this up because I think that we could do better than where we're headed now in terms of making some decisions. And I know I'm ready to do extra meetings, Saturday meetings or whatever, to get through this process so that we can at least make a decision on which projects we may be funding or getting involved in. And the second part of that is the whole issue of the bond issue, because that's going to be another long process, but I see these working down the same track. So I would just like us to take a minute here and really talk about the process of how we're going to get to, I think at one time we indicated in our schedule that we were going to make a decision in April, I think it was.
It was.
Or June.
Yeah, in June.
Yeah, we were going to make a decision in June, and it keeps getting extended out and out and out. So I think, we kind of owe it to the proponents of the projects, all of them, a more definite schedule of when we're going to get down to a decision. And I would hope we could facilitate this a little bit faster. So I think tonight we're not going to talk about all the projects, are we?
No, I doubt we'll make it through.
Yeah. So, and then the second question of that process is, how are we going to make a decision, a final decision of what projects we are going to be involved in, or are we going to do them all? How's that process going to work? Are we going to wait until we have this discussion and then figure out how we're going to move forward with that, or is there...
Correct. As we spoke about and as I detailed in the email, we're going to talk through the pros and cons of each partner or potential partner. We're then each going to come with our own rankings of what we think. We're going to see if there's alignment or if it's messy. We're going to then go through the philosophical conversation of, okay, how do we make that choice then based on who has received money in the past? Do we want to try and fund all 7? Can we meet all of the expectations for one, or do we go back to projects and say, hey, we can give this much, how much can that help? So all of this is, or that will be the process. But I think even by having this conversation, we continue to do this, and I think it delays us just getting into the actual process. It is definitely my view that we didn't give a real good process or a real good timeline to the people who are applying. For that, we've apologized, we've stated that. I agree that we should try and do this faster, which is why at the end of our meeting tonight, we'll have more dates for all of you to give to this process throughout the summer. But to have 6 of us here tonight is a great thing. We're missing Walt, but to add a lot of meetings during the summer is going to be difficult. So we're trying to do that in order to make it go faster. But our timeline, it's better in my point of view to do the process well than to do the process fast.
Okay, if I'm the only one that's worried about it, let's move on.
Well, actually, I'm worried about it. And I think because we don't know how we're going to sell our bonds, we can't really know how much we're going to have available. But I think we should make every effort to maximize the amount of revenue that we can raise in order to fund as many of these or as much of these projects as we can. However, I've mentioned early on that I feel strongly that North Kitsap and South Kitsap should be recognized as a substantial contribution of both of those projects. And I think the Port Orchard project for South Kitsap is a tremendous development for Port Orchard, and we should fund that one to some extent. And North Kitsap, the project that they have in the city limits, I think we should commit to that too. And we could do that, and all of the other projects that we have, we have enough money in our available now to contribute to their feasibility study in both South Kitsap and Paulsville, and the let's see, I'm trying to think. But once when we issued the bonds last time, and we were making our bond payments, we were piling up money for many years till the Great Recession hit. Till the Great Recession hit, so that we could make contributions to many of these projects over the years. A couple of them, perhaps maybe 3 of them, have a bond issue that we might or might not be able to make much of a contribution to. But I think we know right now that we could help. I'm not sure this is. No, that's not what I was looking for. We could help several of these projects with money we already have. And if we don't have, if we wait until in 2020 to issue our bond issues, many of these projects will be further along by that time, and we'll be able to contribute to them.
Well, I think we should get into our process. I think if we get into it right now, I think we're all going to have a real clear understanding by June 24th, kind of where we're at. So I would like to put forward Port Gamble Forest Heritage Park and have us discuss the pros and the cons that we see in that project.
Do we have one person do an overall?
Well, you know, kind of, I like it when we have a flexible structure.
Yeah.
I like it when we can discuss with each other. I think it's a better process for getting to the end of where we want to go. And so, Aaron, if you would want to start us with what you see as pros and cons. You don't need to. I
Well,
can do
no,
it
I
too,
was-
but I was going to be
Yeah, I think
the
what I
last
was
to
looking
speak
for,
as
it
the
would be
chair.
nice to start each one of these with, these are the kind of dollar amounts, you know, we're looking at for this kind of a general thing, and then get into the discussion part, which is kind of what you've done here on your spreadsheet.
Yeah, go through each one of these, you know, start with the top one, the estimated cost, and just work our way down and discuss each one. I think that sounds like something we want to do.
We can.
Or,
For
if you're
me,
gonna-
this is Mike's work that he's done and put together. I'm really interested in hearing you as board members. What do you think about each project? Because so far we've only had projects present to us.
Yeah.
And I'd like to hear what's in your head as far as what do you think what are the things that stuck out for you on the positive side of the column for each project, and what are the things that stuck out as, you know what, I question this, or I'm not comfortable with this, or I don't know about these numbers, or whatever those questions are for you.
Oh, okay. We starting with Port Campbell then?
Yep, start with Port Campbell.
Okay. I guess some of these are questions too. From looking at this, I was under the impression that they've already contributed quite a bit of other money than what's shown here. They said 11 million earlier tonight.
Yeah, I didn't put phase 1 on there because that's already completed. That was the 11 million that purchased the property.
So, but they've already raised 11 million then.
Yep.
Okay.
I was
Raised
reading
and
that
spent.
as well.
Yeah, and spent.
Yes.
Yeah,
they've
or
already
invested.
done all that on their own. Quite a bit of impressive fundraising for that, actually. It's a lot of money. And then, I guess, and then they would need money for a master plan. Which,
Yeah, that's included in
Mike,
the phased. Oh, sorry.
I'd like you to just, unless Pat or one of us asks you a question directly,
Okay,
I'd like to have the board members be the ones to discuss it.
gotcha.
Let me start going down some of the pros and cons that I have, and maybe it'll help give structure for this one. When that project was presented, what I thought is like, holy cow, 3,500 acres, a mile and 1.4 miles of shoreline. What an incredible community asset we have that is ours as a community going forward for, for good. And another thing that stuck out was the ride park that they talked about at Duthie. Over the last 2 months or 3 months, whatever it's been since we heard about this project, I was out at a camp even, I was out at Scenic Beach even this past weekend, and somebody was telling me about their trail riding. They're trying to do the STP, and then they're doing one that goes around Rainier, but they were really excited about the potential of this project. As I was saying, hey, do you think this would be a good idea? I met a guy down in Yelm who I met at a different camp, and he was telling me about Duthie and how many people go to that ride park. The STO, or the Sound to Olympics Trail, I think that is just awesome to think about, like that we could have transportation and bikes that go from our ferries all the way out to the ocean. To think that there would be 4 miles of pavement to take my kids out and go on a bike ride with when they're young, since there aren't a whole lot of streets around here that have some good flat areas or have space where you're riding on the street. I thought the large group of volunteers that's been mentioned was something that I thought was impressive. They said 10,000 hours tonight. 6 years ago that number was taken. That they've been working on it for 12 years. I thought the wide community support of the 12,000 people they mentioned was impressive, and who gave their own money to make that first stage 1 happen. I thought this one, more than all the other ones too, I think. Well, and I guess that can be debated. But it's always open. I remember that from their presentation, Here's a piece of land where you pull up to the parking lot and you use it 365 days a year. And so I thought that was impressive as well. On the con side of it, I thought for stage 2, they're asking for $15.5 million. And the only other public funds that at least are earmarked right now, 40,000 confirmed tonight, but 300,000 as well from the county. So there's 340,000, and we've asked for 1/3 of some kind of a match in the past, and so that's obviously well below coming up to that kind of a threshold. They also did mention in their materials, or they did at the presentation, one of the two, that 2020 is the next cycle for getting grants from the state, I believe it is, or from different organizations. So maybe they would come across more partnership funds then. But I thought that was a con for the low amount of other support financially. So if that gives you a bit of an understanding too, like of saying across the table, here are things that I really liked about something, here are challenges that I see with this project, but so that we're knowing what different people are thinking.
Yeah. Well, with that, I'll go in also. One of the things I love so much about Kitsap is that it's not just tourism, but it's natural. And this park is an amazing setup. I agree with you that it's almost unprecedented to see it. I've hiked through it a couple of times. Not through it, I've hiked a little tiny bit of it, and it's fantastic. I like the bike. I'm not a biker. I'm wearing a knee brace right now. I'll never be a biker again, but I wish I could get back on my bike and go have fun. But I understand the economic draw that does for tourism on it. I think that's a huge part of people coming over to Kitsap. Being there on the north side of Kitsap, it's really easy to get there from Seattle. It's really easy to get there on your way to the Olympics, and there's also the ability for that to trickle down through the rest of Kitsap. So I really like that part of it too. I too like the Sound to Olympics Trail, and I understand that we're only talking about building parts of it, but you got to start with parts before you can ever get the whole thing. And I'd like to see that get done, at some point in my lifetime, because I've not been on what is it, what does Seattle have? Okay, I've not done that, but every time I hear that, I think, I wish we had something like that. And to me, the idea of being able to ride your bike in and jump on, that would just increase the tourism on it. The numbers are, I noticed what you did about, where the funding is right now on it, but I also noticed that there are parts of it that can be done now that could possibly be funded under what we're doing right now, with an offset to look at the other sections as they come up. Like, I think the numbers I don't remember them right now, I didn't write them down, but the numbers were broken down between the Sound to Olympics section, the bike, the actual mountain biking section stuff. So there are different parts on it. It's a huge project overall, like many, many years stuff, and that will be a lot of fun, but I'm only looking at the most immediate part of it. But I think it's a pretty neat project too.
I'll address the money, and I know it doesn't look like there's a whole lot of money that they're coming to the table with right now, but I did include the other $11 million when I was thinking about that. I mean, they've already invested a significant portion, so it's not like they're just coming with a little bit right now.
Yeah.
But of the 15 million they're asking for, there's only a small section of that right now. The 11 million doesn't offset the 15 that they're looking for.
Right, but I believe they've already used that to procure the park.
Right.
Basically, so I mean, they've already spent it. They're just farther ahead than the other projects.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So the way I looked at these projects was economic development, innovation, community benefit, and the effective use of public and private funds. And that goes back through the PFD for a long time. And I don't know how we got it. I don't know how it was adopted, but anyway. So for economic development, I think this project has the potential of providing significant economic development through tourism when it's fully built out. It would provide a destination for hikers, bikers, walkers, all kinds of recreational opportunities that don't exist today. So it would bring that it would focus on tourism, would bring people in here from outside of Kitsap County, because it would be that huge of a park. Innovation, it would be a complex with trail infrastructure, with base camp, with lodging, conference capabilities, and environmental training center. which I think would be a real addition to Kitsap County.
That was the full project,
Yeah,
right?
full project, when it's fully built out. Community benefit, again, with full build out of the project, it would provide many jobs in the tourism sector, because you're going to be building hotels and lodging facilities, as well as provide private investment from the construction of hotels, restaurants, and other tourism-related facilities. I apologize I have to use this thing. Take care of your eyes, guys. I'll tell you that. The full development of the estimated 3,000 acres would also be a place for local residents to plan various kinds of activities, weddings, and all kinds of outdoor activities. Effective use of public and private funds is planned. The project is depending mostly on governmental funding to complete the project. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. I don't know how many of you have been to Stanley Park up in Vancouver, BC, but this project reminds me of what it could be in comparison to Stanley Park. It's located in a very highly residential area. People use the park. People come from all over to use the park. I mean, I know people that travel from here to go up to Vancouver, BC to enjoy that park. And I think when this park is built out, it would be a very similar kind of a destination park for people from all over. My problem with this is, frankly, the commitment of, or lack of commitment of the county to get involved in this project. The county collects a excise tax money for impact fees. Anybody that builds a house has to pay a large percentage of impact fees that goes specifically for projects like this. And the county has failed to really step up to the plate, in my judgment, and support this project and see it get built. So I think to me, the problem with this is the lack of other funding that is being proposed to. I'm not sure how many years it would take to build it. I don't think the PFD can build the park. I think it has to have a lot of other funding from a lot of other places.
What was the tax that you mentioned?
Impact fees.
Tom or Rick, you want to weigh in?
Well, I envision contributing, the PFD is in a position to contribute to the development of this great park in the future, somewhat now, of course, but like I said, in the future, if we're paying our bond issue off, whatever bonds we have, there will always be money available. There has been the last, at least in a decent economy, to make contributions annually towards this park. That's my thinking.
Well, I think in addition to all the positive points that have been made so far, one missing is the environmental impact. I mean, it's a beautiful piece of property that will be preserved forever. We can't change that, but we can help to improve it. And I think that has a very long-term benefit. Economically speaking, I mean, we already know that use of the park today by bike riders and hikers and is there horseback riding too? Yeah, is huge. So I think it makes sense for us to figure out a way, despite the lack of funding, of current funding, I think it makes sense for us to maybe consider what Rick has offered. But somehow I think it makes sense to be involved.
For sure.
Anything else?
You know, the county is kind of in it. They've agreed to do the maintenance. So I believe they already have an ILA drawn up. So, I mean, they are contributing something. So they have to see some value in this park. And the phase 3 is a lot of money, but it sounded like if they only ever make it to phase 2, that would be okay also. It kind of stands alone. It doesn't have to have that far out, very expensive phase to still be a viable park and draw people.
Anything to add with this one before we move on to the next? All right, Central Kitsap Events Center is our next one. You want me to start each one, or does someone else want to take a swing?
I'm good with you starting it.
All right, good. Pros. I love the spirit of the community behind this one. I love that Central Kitsap School District had this money that the community gave them, and they're building the new school. And oh, by the way, we have this asset now of this building that we can use for other purposes, and inviting in the community to use that building in different ways. So I love the idea of having music space that could be rented out, and the partnership then with the library, and for people practicing or using it for different things. I thought the outdoor amphitheater was something that would benefit the community in great ways, bring in different venues or concerts, but would be a great addition. The con that I wrote down was simply the location of being in Central Kitsap already, and we've already given a bunch of money to the fairgrounds specifically that has improved fields, that has already benefited Central Kitsap School District and the rest of the county, but priority-wise, they're the schools that end up using those fields quite a bit. So that was the only con that I had with it.
Well, here we go. So, as far as economic development goes, this project is a part of a 60-acre complex that features new high school, new middle school, performing arts center, athletic complex. The proposed event and community conference center would establish the complex as one of the most complete regional event center in Kitsap County. Again, tourism dollars would be the main source of economic development. People coming in for regional events would certainly use the hotels in the area and the restaurant facilities, and would probably inspire some more. Innovation, the school district really planned outside of the box with this project. I don't know of any other school district in the county that has been as aggressive as they have in designing a project that offers a lot of opportunity to the community, and activities that would draw people from outside of the region. Community benefit, all of Kitsap County would benefit from this project, as well as persons living in Central Kitsap. I mean, they're paying for the majority of it, but I can assure you there'll be people from South Kitsap and North Kitsap utilizing these facilities. The Performing Arts Center plan will bring live performance to our area, and they'll draw all people from all parts of the county. Effective use of public and private funds. They have secured some funds from the private sector and from the regional library, so it's a really kind of a nice mixture of their bond issue funds that they got with other folks. So this is a project that will provide a much-needed recreational complex for Central Kitsap. The best part of the project is the partnership between the school district, Kitsap Credit Union, and the Kitsap Regional Library. I think that's a real feather in their hat that they put that together. I too, the negative parts of my thoughts is that, again, the initial allocation of money back in the early 2000s, the Central Kitsap area got about $11 million. When you count the center down in Bremerton and the ball fields at the fairgrounds, they got the biggest portion of the money available. So I'm feeling it's a kind of a low priority for me, because I think we need to take care of the county that was parts of the county that were left out in the original bonds.
Well, I feel that it is a tremendous improvement in Central Kitsap. And initially I was thinking, as you mentioned, Bill, we have to basically, the lion's share of the PFD money went to Bremerton Conference Center and made a tremendous contribution to Bremerton, look where it is now from that. So I wouldn't favor very much money for either Bremerton or Central Kitsap, but I was pleased to see that the amount being requested at Central Kitsap was $2.8 million. And so I'd be, that's a good contribution. I don't know that we have $2.8 million or what the Pendergast was asking for. I don't think we can do that this term, but some contribution to both those projects would be in order. But I think as I've said before, the priority for me is North Kitsap, wherever it is up there, and South Kitsap.
Well, I look at the overall school project, and I've never seen anything get put together like this, and how beautifully it's put together. I mean, I heard on a meeting the other day about the aeronautical, the jet engines things, and how Boeing's coming over here and looking at what Central Kitsap School District's doing, because no school over there has tapped that yet. And the innovation that the school district has done is just amazing. I wish I was back in high school. Almost. So, you know, this whole project and bringing the library into it, the reuse on the buildings is beautiful. The one thing I do see is that they've done a huge amount of this, and we're able to get these funds, nothing I ever thought anybody would be able to pull off. The part that's left that's come to public facilities is a very small part. It's, you know, asphalt, it's a parking lot. I looked at that and thought, it's not a game changer on this project as much as some of these other things we're looking at. They already have an unbelievably amazing project. It's great, and if we've got the money, I'd love to do it. But it didn't make the top of my list, only because it's not going to take that project up on a big enough level more, because they've just done such an amazing job already. So.
Tom or Pat, you want to weigh in?
Yeah, mine's pretty much the same as everybody else. I like the small price tag, $2.8 million. That's good. I don't know how much economic development is going to bring in outside of county dollars. I mean, it looks like something that would be used fairly locally by people, not bringing a lot of dollars from outside. And I have the same issue that some other people have, is we put a lot of money into Central Kitsap already. We have, and maybe it's time to branch out and spend that somewhere else. But it's a great project. It's just not high on my priority because of that.
I'm not so much basing my opinions based on where money has gone previously. I'm looking at it sort of with a new lens. And I have to agree with what's been said here, is that while this is an amazing complex that has taken years to design and fundraise for and build, I'm not so sure that, as Aaron puts it, it is a game changer. And when I look at it from the economic development lens, yeah, it is a huge benefit for the locale, but I'm not so sure that it's going to bring in tourist dollars, out of county dollars, especially when you compare it to some of the other projects that are listed here.
Hey, we're going to take a 5-minute break just to stretch your legs and grab a drink or whatever you need. All right. So I'll get it started with this one. Pros. Steve's determination and energy has to be at the top of my list. He's passionate. He's a passionate man, so that's great. It's a beautiful site. So being able to recreate the Port Orchard downtown, where you can draw people there to enjoy the natural beauty, and in the presentation or in the packet, giving waterfront access to the community, so that can be a normal part of everyday life in Port Orchard, I think is a wonderful way of drawing, whether it's businesses or people or commerce, to Port Orchard. So the natural surroundings, I think, is a big deal. And I think, as has been said tonight by others too, there's, our situation where they've received the least, South Kitsap has received the least amount, unless you count the Bremerton Conference Center as part of that. But so there's a piece there, as well as Bainbridge, that hasn't received anything as well. So that, I think, is a pro for them. Cons, I know that a big part of this too with timelines is around Kitsap Bank, and so that's just not a reason for why we need to move our process in a different way. It's not a reason for having to make a decision on it. I would hope Kitsap Bank would want to choose to be in Kitsap regardless of how soon we make a decision or not make a decision. So that would be one of the cons from the whole process for me.
Do you want to go, Bill?
Okay. Okay. For economic development, this project would stimulate private investment and job creation in Port Orchard. With the construction of the proposed event center, Kitsap Bank has assured Port Orchard that it will construct its new corporate headquarters there, saving up to 200 high-paying jobs, and the kind of jobs that we all try to achieve to create. Those jobs now are spread out, and they told me that the reason that they would stay here is because of this project, but that their business is growing on the other side of the bridge, which is very interesting to them. So it's estimated that upon the completion of the master plan, at least $29 million of new payroll would be created in Kitsap County. Innovation. This project brings together partners involved in tourism development, in the private sector, which is creating economic development through private investment. So There's a number of businesses that are looking at this in terms of locating there. Further, it provides the opportunity to work with the Harborside Event Center for expanded opportunities in meeting planning for larger events. The event center would provide the Port of Bremerton a stronger advantage in marketing its Port Orchard Marina. Community benefit, the project would provide a community event center for South Kitsap that does not exist today. The increased tourism activity would occur through the marketing of Port Orchard Marina, and waterfront activities would increase for the South Kitsap community. Similar to other communities like Paulsbo and Silverdale. Effective use of public and private funds. The project depends on public and private funding sources. The construction of the Community Events Center will spur private investment from businesses such as Kitsap Bank. My comments are this is a well thought out project that will have an immediate impact on the South Kitsap community. Kitsap Bank is in the planning process of determining where to locate their corporate headquarters, and I agree with you, Darren. There's every reason for them to stay here. While there are a number of other issues that need to be addressed, the City of Port Orchard, Kitsap County, and the Port of Bremerton have passed resolutions supporting this project. So that's the pros of it. The cons, they have a number of issues they have to solve before they can really get started. First thing is there's the plan for the event center doesn't exist. I mean, it's on paper we're going to have this event center, but there's no architectural drawings to even determine what it's going to cost. It could, as we heard from the mayor, he doesn't know what it's going to cost, and he asked in his meeting with us for planning funds to do a study on exactly what kind of a center they would need. Second problem is they don't own the property. I mean, they don't own it, and so they've got to be able to pick that property up to be able to construct this. I have no doubt that they'll be able to do that. The major owners of the property are the Port of Bremerton, Bliss Motors, and the bank. So the bank's already obligated. They're going to make their part of the property available. And the Port of Bremerton has indicated they're going to be a partner, so they'll probably be able to figure that out, but it's going to take some time. The one that's going to be difficult is Bliss Motors, who owns the 7-Eleven property. That's all I have to say.
Question at the beginning, right after 200 high-paying jobs, you had said another number that I missed.
The plan estimates, I think it's $29 million in new payrolls that will be created as a result of this project.
Back in the 90s, living in California and in Central Valley in the Bay Area, this is exactly the kind of project that the public redevelopment funds were doing. I saw first downtown Palo Alto get redeveloped, and then Mountain View, and then I moved out to Central Valley and I watched them do it to downtown Lodi, and this is exactly what we were doing with money that was at that point, given to the city. So I look at this the same kind of way you do. It's a gem of a location. I mean, and I'm in real estate. It's all about location, and it needs that revitalization. It needs that kickstart. I've been very impressed with the commitment, and it's Steve and everybody else. I mean, what they've done so far and what they've been putting together for this whole project. yeah, they don't have all the land. I don't have any worries. I would never need to think they need to be micromanaged. I think these guys will get their project done. Now that we know that the city and the port and everybody's coming behind them, that's alleviated some of my concerns that I had. I'm excited to see some more economic impact coming from the marina. I expect a hotel. I expect this to continue to grow, much like what Harborside, the convention center in Bremerton, did to that area. Kitsap Bank, whether, you know, I would like them to stay in Kitsap too. That would be great. You know, these are, I don't even judge the whole project based on one particular piece of it working. I look at it and say, man, I hope this stays. This would be awesome. You know, if not, it's still a great project. So I really don't have a lot of cons on it. It's a very big project. It's got a lot of money involved, and I think they'll find a way to put the whole thing together with some backing from us on it. So I'm really strong on this one.
Well, speaking of the fact that they need to go further, I think we've got money already available that we could contribute to their feasibility study, which is their next step, I believe. And it'll be some time before they need to have a real commitment from us. But like I've just said, we could help them go forward, and then in 2020, when it'll be probably before our bonds are available, they'll come closer to it. So I think the fact that South Kitsap hasn't gotten anything in 15 years of PFD existence, we ought to commit to that. And like I said, the early funding for their feasibility study, the same way I've suggested for Paulsbo's project, it'll be some time before they're in a position to start building. And by then, we'll have our bond capacity in view.
So I think, like a lot of these projects, it's a great vision. I think similar to the CK project, however, the benefit is fairly limited to the county as a whole. It's more centralized around that one area. I was also concerned too about the size of the proposed facility and the footprint of the library. It just seemed like there was very little additional space left for other uses. As Bill mentioned too, I'm concerned that when asked about the price of the real estate, it's TBD, and nobody knows that. So that, with that, I agree too, Rick, that given some time, resources, and additional planning, it has legs, and we could participate in a smaller manner at this point. But I think, my opinion is that it's not ready for full involvement.
And I'm kind of with Tom on that one. It's a great project with lots of stuff, but it's almost like they were kind of under a timeline to get something in there. And it's just all the pieces aren't there yet. I mean, I have more questions about the funding that they're going to add to it, the cost of the property. I mean, a lot of stuff. And it's something that could be very, very viable, down the road. I like the project, but I think it might be something that would be better to maybe, like Rick said, fund a little bit and see where it goes, and then kind of go from there, if it all works out.
All right, any other comment on Port Orchard Event Center? Okay, this time we're going to move on to item number 7 on our agenda. And we're going to go to 7A, Resolution 02-2019. Mike, would you speak to this?
I can. In your packets are the resolution. So I took a look at both what Darren was asking for, which was to keep the project moving forward, and also what we needed to do in order to accomplish that. We've had the 2-a-month meetings, and so using that same principle, the resolution that you have in front of you adds 3 more meeting dates. Darren had a conflict on the original date on July 8th, which was the second Monday, and the 22nd, which was the 4th Monday of the month. I adjusted those dates to the 15th and the 29th, which is the 3rd and 5th Monday of July. Then added the August 12th and September 9th as the second Mondays in those months, where we had on our original schedule only 1 meeting in those months. So we pick up 4 additional dates in the next quarter in order to make sure that we're handling the evaluation and selection and the information for the bounding process as rapidly as we're able to do. So that was my suggestion in order to keep the process moving along as it has for the first half of the year, and hope that you are able to make as many of those dates as possible.
Can I have a motion to approve Resolution 02-2019?
I'll move.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I have one thing that kind of goes with this, is with these extra meetings. I guess some people have mentioned that it's not always easy to get the stipend. Now we're doing extra meetings. So I don't know if this should come in here, but maybe we should just automatically pay out the stipend to cover expenses. If you don't want it, give it back, give it to charity, whatever you want. That way we don't have anyone that has to go and ask for it specifically or anything. I don't know how everyone feels about that.
I think that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah, when I was on planning commission, we all received a stipend, and it just made it easy.
It gets expensive with extra meetings and commuting and everything else.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, we don't get reimbursed though.
Yeah.
There is a motion on the floor, though, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
This is just part of this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And who seconded?
I did.
Any other discussion? Thank you, Pat. All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay.
So I'd like to add on to what Pat said, because I think there's more to the discussion than just the stipend. I think that there is expenses that mileage that can be paid. I'd like to have Mike provide us with a full accounting of what is available to a person serving on this board in terms of reimbursement, mileage, stipend, whatever is allowed by law. I think we should know.
Well, the stipend is certainly allowed, and it's in our bylaws to take care of that. I'd have to check on the mileage. I don't know.
Well, anything else? I mean, whatever else is.
Yeah, like when we went to the conference
We got
in Seattle.
Yeah.
All our costs.
Well, yeah,
were
that's
reimbursed.
taken care of, and that's written in so that when you are traveling to events, to conferences, whatever, that expense is covered, and it's done through the expense application process.
Would you please review that though, and then report back to us?
Okay.
You know, just as an example, the port allows each one of the commissioners to have a computer. The port provides that computer. We've gone through this public request thing, and what the port decided was that they wanted to make sure they got covered, so they provided a computer so that that computer was used for port business and was not under any question when there was any kind of a request. So, and then they provided things such as cell phone reimbursement. If you had a cell phone that you used for business. So there's a myriad of things that are available that I think we may not want to take them, and that would be a decision that we would make. But we should know what is available, right?
Yes. Very good. So Mike, you'll report back to us for the
Yep.
June 24th meeting.
Yes.
All right, moving down to 7B, review budget revision proposal. Mike, will you guide this conversation?
Yeah, in your packet, there is a suggested budget revision. It's only a suggestion at this point. I've looked at the expenses through the first 6 months of the year, and the original budget estimate and forecasted. Obviously, you've approved more hours for me, so that's significantly higher. We're doing recording of all the meetings where I thought we would record the presentations. So that was an item that was not in the budget at all. There are some reductions that I've accounted for. Every budget that I've done, there's been a $1,200 expense for administrative services from the county because we had a ILA that defined that. And I went back to the county and said, I owe you all this money and they said, we kind of dispensed with those a long time ago, and yes, you have a contract with us, but you don't have to pay us. So I took that line item out. We don't have any requests at this point for the event fund. So I reduced that amount. So there's been some offset to the suggested increases in the tax. And unfortunately, I noticed from looking at errands that the ones that were color-coded on mine didn't get picked up on the copier, so my apologies.
What was covered under the event fund? What is covered under the event fund?
The event fund was the money paid to the people that were using the facilities, like Josephine's Redeemed Revival.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Some seed money so that they could get started. There's nobody that's come forward to ask for that money at this point.
Even though no one has asked for it, I don't want to move that as one person on the board, move that smaller. I think that's one of the things we do with our money that does continue to benefit our own facilities, and so I don't want to set a precedent for next year. If we don't use it all, fine, but I don't want to go into the budgeting process next year and have it be smaller.
Yeah, and I would agree with that.
I would too.
Yeah, well, that's fine, and I'll be happy to do that. Since we weren't going to spend it anyway, I thought it was all right to take it out of the budget because it would go back in next year. I was not proposing that we reduce that permanently, just that for the balance of this year, we were not going to spend it, so I recommend taking it out. But if you want to leave it in, that's not a problem.
Any other question or comment for Mike?
So is this a reforecast of where we're going through? Are we calendar year for budget?
Yeah, we're calendar year.
So is this a reforecast of where you think we'll be once we'll put the 10,000 back in for the event fund? Okay.
Yeah. And my rent got increased by my landlord. Thank you very much, Patty. Was another increase. And also one of the other smaller increases was an increase in telephone.
Actually, you didn't change the office rent. It's the same. You have 10,000.
But I knew about that earlier, so that had all, I'd
Oh, okay.
increased it in the beginning of the year.
Okay.
But the telephone's going up because I was getting lousy service from CenturyLink, and I switched to Comcast, and that's costing about $150 a month instead of $115.
Mike, do we need to take any action on this in the future, or is this just you reporting to us basically, here are some costs that have
I'm
changed?
reporting to you now, but I'd recommend that we do, that I submit an action, it'll be a resolution to adopt the budget. I didn't want to do it tonight because Walt isn't here, and I wanted him to weigh in on this before we present it to the board as an official revision to our budget, because those numbers get submitted to the county as well.
Besides moving the event fund back up to 20,000, are there any other questions, discussion, adjustments that you want to recommend?
I can't recall what the 5,000 facility inspection was.
That was proposed because you may recall I was talking about either doing a facility inspection of the conference center or of any of the other facilities to find out what state they're in, what recommendations have to be done about maintaining them on a long-term basis, and work with the facilities in order to have a plan in place and set aside funding on a regular basis so that they keep the facilities up to the level that we are asking them to do. And again, this wasn't adopted and acted on, so I was proposing to take that out for now. We'll probably put it back in next year and hope to accomplish the same thing.
Good. All right. Number 8, announcements, upcoming events. Anything to add with that?
I think the only thing is the PFD conference. I sent information out to you guys. It's in October, as I recall.
Yakima, right? Yakima?
Yes.
Yeah.
In Yakima. So it's reachable for any of you, and we can carpool or whatever we need to if you want to participate in that. So, but I'll send you other reminders just so that you have a heads up. Otherwise, that's it.